Ladies and gentlemen, this is the SoCal Intellect Podcast. It's your host, Nick Swish. I have my man, the dinner himself, Nekias Duncan. How you doing, sir?
Doing pretty well, sir. You know, just doing my usual dinner thing. Something slight. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. So today, I wanted to kind of, I've always kind of wanted to interview you a little bit, like what got you into writing and, what made you love writing specifically about basketball and all that kind of stuff. And then also we got to talk about our team, the Heat. And then I also want to just get a little bit about like your predictions on the playoffs and what you think is going to happen. So let's jump into it. So first, I'm going to ask you, what really got you into like writing about basketball? Like where did it start? I know it started, it wasn't on Twitter, but like what's the origin story behind that?
Oh man, the origin story. Well, growing up, I always loved writing. Basketball was actually technically my third love, though it's grown into my first. Grew up on football, also grew up on NASCAR. Shout out Jeff Gordon. That was fun.
Go.
But anyway, yeah. So played a little basketball growing up. My dreams to make it to the NBA. You learn very quickly that the chances of doing that are slim to none.
Yeah.
So got around high school. I realized that the NBA thing wasn't going to happen. So I was like, hey, I need to find a way to stay connected to basketball.
Right.
So that's really when I started writing more. Started blogging on this Facebook page called NBA Talk. I was doing a lot of commenting and stuff on the page, posting free agent news. At the time, Woj wasn't who he is now.
Yeah, he wasn't big time.
He wasn't big time Woj yet. So he was at Yahoo at the time. So I was following him on Twitter. And I quickly realized that him, Mark Spears, a couple of other Yahoo guys were getting NBA news like 20 or 30 minutes before like Mark Stein or whatever. So I was feeding the NBA Talk page that the free agency news. And they were like, oh, man, we need to add this guy to our staff or whatever.
Yeah.
He's helping us beat these other Facebook pages out for news. And I was helping them gain fans and stuff.
Right.
So from there, got on, still posted a lot of the free agency updates, but I started doing more in-depth writing. One of the first pieces I wrote for that page was a Heat Thunder series preview back in 2012. So that's kind of where my in-depth stuff started.
Right.
And from there, just kind of snowballed. I became probably, if not the most popular admin on the page, I was one of the most popular admins on the page.
Yeah.
And just kind of took that, following a lot of those people that follow me on Twitter when I started getting more active on there. And I've just been writing ever since. That's kind of it. Just kind of snowballed from Facebook to Twitter, and then started getting actual legit writing opportunities. First unpaid, then started getting some paid opportunities, and that kind of. Yeah.
I know you be on, Bleacher Report. You've been slam all that. I'll be seeing your little articles sometimes, and I'll be like, "Hey, Nekias has made it a long way. Like I've known you for it's 4 or 5 years now. So it's crazy seeing like the success you've had. Like I'm really proud of you seeing that. I knew you when you were more so just talking like regularly about Heat basketball. And now you're like branching out into, other teams like the Hawks and stuff like that. You just writing about basketball, period. So it's dope to see you doing stuff like that. And also one thing I noticed, like, with your style of writing, like when I was coming up, when I was younger, like getting ready to go to college, I wanted to write myself. I wanted to be, like a journalist, writing for the NBA or writing for basketball, period. And your articles were somebody's articles I really looked towards a lot because I needed some kind of, comparison. Like, dang, am I writing as good as this person or am I like close? So you were like my measuring stick, man. So it's good to see that you were, really hitting your strides right now, and you only have from up, like you're only going up from here. So I'm proud of you, man.
I appreciate that, man. About to make me be an emotional dinner on the podcast. But man, it's surreal, man. Because like just going back to the Facebook thing, I was just doing it because I love to do it. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't really consider it being like a legit career path until like I hit college and I went for trying to get a journalism degree and stuff. So for me to build that kind of following and then come to Twitter and build the kind of following I have now, it's still kind of weird that people actually care about what I say.
What you have to say, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, man. Like, I mean, I watch a lot, I read a lot, look up a lot of stuff or whatever. Like, I try to make sure that I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just a dude that loves puns and everything else and just loves basketball.
Oh my
so it's
God,
kind of crazy.
Puns, man.
Man,
that's a Nekias staple. That is a Nekias staple. If you don't know Nekias, you're gonna know at least one or two of his puns. Like it's guaranteed.
Correct. Yeah, man, I'm just a dude that loves basketball. So I mean, it's still weird that I'm like respected in the basketball writing community. But like, I mean, it's a blessing though. Like, I'm glad I'm at where I'm at.
That's good, man. So like, I know you've been to several games, obviously, like Heat games. You were credentialed for the All-Star game last year. Like, tell me a little bit like what that was like. Like, I met you at Summer League and I saw you writing and whatnot, doing your thing. But like, what was being in the All-Star atmosphere? Like, what was that like? I've always wanted to go to an All-Star game. I've never been.
Oh man, it's so it's different, I would say. Like, it's a lot more hectic.
I believe that. I really believe that.
Like my first, I've been to the last two All-Star games. 2019 was in Charlotte. That was basically in my backyard.
Yeah,
so I already knew the area, but so I already knew the area and stuff. But it was still weird seeing so many people that I like read being in the same area.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, being able to talk to a bunch of players that I just don't get to interact with, like that was a cool experience.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been following me for a while, so you know my whole Khris Middleton thing.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
he's one of my favorite players in
the legend himself. I already know.
Yeah, so like getting to talk to Khris Middleton during like media availability is like surreal to me. I was like, man, I tweet about this dude, and now here I am asking him about his role in the offense. Like, it's just crazy to see these guys.
I already know.
Yeah, like they're just like us. Just taller and more athletic and a lot more.
Right. But, they just like us. They might be a little taller. Their checks might be a little bigger, but it's okay. It's okay.
Other than the bank accounts, like they're human beings. It's crazy. But I guess that's the biggest thing because like I normally just kind of keep to myself anyway. So being in a place where it's players walking around all the time, there's a whole bunch of media. In Charlotte, in particular, when they had like the media availability or whatever, and it's like they have like a couple hundred fans or whatever around there,
right? That
they can come in and like watch the stuff. So it's condensed, but it's also kind of hectic because it moves kind of quickly. So you got to get used to that.
You got to get used to the atmosphere.
But overall, the vibe's a lot more chill. Like it's All-Star weekend. You're asking silly questions that you wouldn't ask in like a locker room, stuff like that. Players are a lot more chill. They'll talk to you more. Yeah. So it's definitely fun. In Chicago, it was kind of the same deal. It's the same deal, but just on a larger scale because Chicago is a much larger market.
Yeah.
And that's on top of the big snowstorm that they had.
Yeah, they did have that snowstorm.
Entering that weekend, which, one of the most frustrating.
I remember the sequence of tweets from that weekend. Man.
Dog,
man,
I was so frustrated. Cause like I barely slept the night before because I originally had like what did I have? I think I had like an 8:30 a.m. flight.
Yeah.
And I was scheduled to get there like 10. But because of the snowstorm, I didn't leave the airport. I didn't fly out of Charlotte until like 4 o'clock.
So you was at the airport literally all day almost. Like from morning damn near till night. Oh nah. See, I'll be mad. I would be irritated.
Yeah, it was wild, man. So finally getting there and it wasn't snowing, but it was still snowing. It's like below it. Yeah, I had love Chicago, great place, but that was just not the experience.
Like, this is not what I was going for. This is not what I expected.
It was not what I expected. Like, bro, what are we doing here? We ain't got to do this. But overall, like the experience was great. Like same ordeal, talking to players, meeting up with more media. It was just super cold, but I mean, other than that, it was fine.
I understand. I figured, my brother and my mom have been to Chicago. I haven't been myself, but I know they know how cold it is, and they've told me. So one day I'll experience it, but I don't know when. There ain't no telling when that'll be. But yeah, I can imagine it's pretty cold out there.
you out there in the sun, and you ain't. Yeah, you don't know what Chicago feel like,
it's
bro.
burning out here. Oh my goodness,
that's a different breed.
So before we, talk about get a little preview on the Heat and the playoffs, I wanted to kind of reminisce a little bit. Like, remember Summer League last year? Like, we met at Summer League, and
yes,
do you remember? It's like during the Summer League game when I was texting you and you were sitting you were sitting with Ethan, you were sitting with the rest of the media members. I was like, hey, Nekias, look to your left. And you looked, I'm like, Nekias, I'm right here. Look to your left and then look down. So you're like, I don't see you. I'm like, man, I'm right here.
Dog. I tried my best, man. I did. Man, I really did. I was looking all over the place. Like, I feel the funny thing, I ended up seeing your brother before I saw you.
Yeah,
I was like, okay.
So that was a good brother right there. I'm like, Nekias, I'm right here. Oh my goodness, man. That was a funny time though. Some of the league last year was fun. We had fun.
That was a ball, bro.
Fat Burger was funny too.
Yes, it was. You thought you were ready to drop your mixtape then and there. It's quite the experience. Yeah, I ain't forget.
Oh my goodness, I can't wait to experience that again. Ain't no telling when it'll be, but someday.
You're right, man.
Someday it'll happen again. But
yeah, I miss it.
On the more serious topics, we both Heat fans. You write for the team. You know more of the analytics stuff. I'm just trying to get into it, trying to learn. But what do you think we about to do in these playoffs, man? Like, I think if we end up meeting Milwaukee, like after we beat Indiana, I think we're gonna have maybe I'll say 2 wins against the Bucks. But like, do you feel confident in us going into this playoff series right now with the Pacers, and then possibly beating them to play the Bucks?
I already felt like Miami would beat Indiana in round 1. I just think they're entering the series with the 2 best players in the series. Yeah. And the way, even though Miami's defense hasn't been as good as it normally is, like they've allowed a lot of threes, they've struggled keeping guys out the paint. Indiana isn't a team that can kind of pick at Miami's weaknesses there. Like, they don't have a real shifty guard out of Aaron Holiday. And if he's your primary ball handler, I mean, if he's getting more touches than like a Brogdon or someone like that, then you kind of take that if you're Miami. And then Indiana has shooters, but like they don't take a lot of threes. Yeah, and that's the area. Team. Yeah, so like they stylistically, they don't really bother Miami in a way that would make them a real threat. Yeah. And then once you add in the fact that T.J. Warren's playing hurt, Domantas Sabonis is out. Depot's still trying to work his way back. Brogdon's still trying to work his way back. Yeah. It just doesn't seem like there's a real path to Indiana winning unless Miami just goes ice cold from 3 for an entire series, and I don't think that's going to happen.
I doubt it happened for a series. I can see a game or two, but a series, man, oh my goodness, that would be a terrible collapse.
I just don't see it. So I'm thinking with all those injuries, especially, I think it's going to be a 5 or 6 game series for Miami. Like, I think it's going to be ugly because Pacer game are always ugly. So
it never fails.
Kind of pace.
Never fails.
Yeah, it's going to get chippy. But I just think Miami's going to out-talent Indy. Like, I just don't see how they pull that off.
Yeah. I think with Indiana and Miami, like, that's been a long-standing thing with them. Like, their games are always going to be, ugly. And it's very, very rarely, like, high-scoring matches. Like, even when we had Bron and Bosh and Wade all on the same team, like, that was the one team that always – not to even make a pun here, but they always slowed the pace down. Like, it was literally games where, we'll score like 120 on the team the night before, and we go play Indiana. We maybe put up 95 points. So, like, it's like that now. It's always been a constant with, playing against the Pacers, no matter who their coach is, who's on their team. I think that's just one of the trends. Like, that's one of the kind of underrated rivalries in the league to me because like, it goes back years. Like, even when Danny Granger was with the Pacers, and it was mostly D Wade and Shaq on the Heat. So it's like, I don't know, man. I don't think that's ever going to change. But I do see us getting them out of here maybe in probably 5 or 6 games, like you said. But another surprise this year with the Heat, this man Duncan Robinson. After last year, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't have faith in that man. Like I couldn't
I didn't
believe
see it.
I couldn't believe how like somebody that was supposed to be a shooter just he couldn't get his looks to drop. But now it's like we're talking about a at worst top 3 or 4 shooter in the league right now. And I didn't see it coming, but with the way they play, the way Bam and him run the little dribble handoffs, like, do you think that's something that's going to be emphasized even more in the playoffs? Or do you feel like, what we're doing right now, like the level we have it at is going to be okay for us to win games?
I would imagine that amps up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just going back to Duncan, I agree with you. I didn't see it either.
Man,
I think he shot a little bit over 28% from three in that first year. And then I was at Summer League, and he looked better. He looked like he added some strength, added a little bit of weight. He looked more comfortable with the ball in his hands. It was easy to lose sight of his progress when you saw Kendrick Nunn dropping 20 every night and Tyler Hero was showing his flashes.
Going crazy.
Yeah. Like those guys showed out, but like very quietly, Duncan Robinson looked a lot more comfortable, looked stronger. Yeah. And those ball skills have kind of translated. You see that kind of in dribble handoffs when teams are like trapping those handoffs.
Yeah, like they
throwing those pocket passes
in.
Yeah, like they're blitzing him. Like he's slipping in those quick passes to Bam on the short roll, and then just kind of create those advantage situations. So he's gotten better there. It's kind of wild to see how quickly he's transformed to this kind of weapon because, again, he didn't shoot well in a limited sample last year. Like, and then this preseason, it's crazy. But just going into this preseason when I think that was that post-practice clip the Heat account tweeted out, and Spo was talking about, we think Duncan's one of the best shooters on the planet. And I'm just like,
do you not remember?
I think I tweeted at the time. I was like, are you sure about that?
Like, you're guaranteeing this right now.
I'm just like, is this just coach speak, or is there something that we all missing? Because I don't see it. And
I remember all this.
Yeah, I'm just he must have had a really good practice that day. Like I just didn't see it. Like I wouldn't have been surprised if he became like a 35-36% guy, but like he's
now he had almost 45%
on like 8 attempts. Like
it's normal for him. That's what's scary.
Yeah, like contested looks, off the move, catch and shoot, pump sidestep, fired up. Like he is just absurd from deep.
Yeah.
So I do think the Heat are going to try to emphasize that dribble handoff as much as possible. I'm a little concerned by the Toronto matchup from this year, from the bubble games, where they pretty much stashed OG on Bam so they could switch that action.
Yep.
And if I remember correctly, they only got 2 shots or something off of that dribble handoff.
It wasn't many. I do remember that.
Yeah, so I'm kind of worried about more teams going smaller on Bam just because he struggled to post those smaller guys, which has been a weird trend all year. As much as he's improved offensively this year, he just hasn't figured out those mismatches on post-ups.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if we see more teams like Indiana might try it. If they do beat Indiana, which I think they'll do. Milwaukee definitely can do it if they go to more lineups with Bam at the 5. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if they stash like Khris Middleton on Bam, just so they can kind of switch those and Robinson handoffs. And I mean, they have enough wing defenders to say, hey, if we're going to put Middleton on Bam, we can put Wes Matthews on Jimmy Butler. Yeah, and we'll be okay. Wes Matthews had a really good defensive year this year.
All right.
So like stuff like that kind of alarms me. But in general, I think the Heat are still going to utilize that Bam Robinson dribble handoff just because it bends defenses in a way that opens up so much for them on the floor.
Yeah, it opens up other opportunities. Like if they try to run the handoff and it's not there, maybe Bam fakes it, he goes to the basket, and he gets scored, and he kicks out. Or if it does work, Duncan doesn't have to look, he passes it out, or whatever happens. So it does create a lot of opportunities. Like I've noticed that watching the games, Bam will be preparing for the dribble handoff and it doesn't quite work out. Or even Kelly Olynyk will be preparing for it and he does a little Kelly keeper and goes straight to the basket. So it does create a lot of opportunities, but it is going to depend on, how we react to teams' defenses. And I think, like with Indiana, I think we'll be okay because it has been working. But, a team like the Bucks, like they're such a what's the word? Like a switchable. They have such a switchable defense, so it's like almost anybody on their defense can stay in front of anybody on our offense. So it's kind of like it's more of a challenge to do that. But like I said, I still give us a chance to win maybe 1 or 2 games against the Bucks. So we'll see how that works out. But before we get into the predictions, I'm gonna ask you like who you think is gonna win what round and all that. But I wanted to talk about 2 more things related to the Heat as far as Bam's leap and Jimmy Butler not being as aggressive of a scorer as far as shooting the ball. Like, do you feel like Jimmy not really shooting the ball a lot is gonna hurt us in the long run? Because the refs aren't as lighthearted when it comes to players trying to draw fouls all the time, and Jimmy gets to the line at a really high rate. So, like, do you think that might hurt us in the long run if Jimmy doesn't start trying to look for his shot more, or do you think we'll be okay?
I am a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
The jumper itself has been an issue all year, but now it's kind of gotten to the point to where Jimmy's having more of those record scratch situations to where the ball swings around the perimeter. He's open for a corner 3 and he kind of just holds it, and the defense is allowed to recover. Him missing shots is one thing. Him refusing to take open ones is where you really get concerned about off the flow, because Miami, their half-court offense is fine, but it can be defended just off the strength of Jimmy and Bam not being shooters. That already kind of shrinks the floor, kind of puts more strain on your Duncan Robinsons, on your Goran Dragic when he's out there, on your heroes when he's out there. Yeah. When your 2 best players aren't treated as shooting threats, teams are allowed to cramp the floor, which puts more onus on the shooters that you do have to make those shots. So if Jimmy isn't even going to take shots within rhythm, that's going to make it a little bit harder for Miami to create good shots in the half court. And especially if you're going into a Bucks matchup, if they do go smaller and put a smaller guy on Bam so they can switch the handoff, if Jimmy isn't able to create out of one-on-one situations or bend defenses in that way, it can get pretty ugly pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you look at Miami as a team that is good but not great, because they still, while Jimmy Butler is one of the best players in basketball, he isn't a dynamic off the dribble threat.
Nah, he's not.
He's very much a downhill guy, which is why he kind of profiles more as a second-tier star more so than a superstar, just because he doesn't bend defenses in that same way, like a Damian Lillard who can score on all 3 levels.
Yeah, Dame can shoot from anywhere.
Yeah, like teams duck under screens against Jimmy Butler. That already makes it a little bit harder for him to get cleaner looks, or when he's trying to drive to the basket if they're ducking under those picks.
Yeah, exactly.
And if the whistle does get swallowed a little bit, then I am a little bit concerned, because if he's not even taking those jumpers against guys dipping under picks, then he's forcing the issue. And if he's forcing the issue and not getting calls, then you're looking at transition opportunities on the other way.
And they're going to keep scoring and it's going to run the score up.
Yeah, it can snowball a little bit. So it would be nice to see Jimmy get a little bit more aggressive on that front. He has to take at least the pull-up middies out of pick and roll. He has to take those and take those.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, because that's a shot that he's been good at in the past. If he just gets that 14 to 16 footer back, that's going to open up some things. He doesn't even have to be a serious 3-point threat.
Right.
But he has to take those shots more so than anything.
Yeah, I look at, some of his numbers from when he was in the playoffs last year with Philadelphia, when he was more comfortable with, I guess you could say more so trying to actually score the basketball rather than, trying to get to the line and knock down free throws. He was a more aggressive creator. That's the word I'm looking for. He was a more aggressive shot creator. And, he was more willing to go look for his own bucket. And it kind of takes me back also to, his better years like in 2016 and 2017 when he was actually, hitting game winners off step back jumpers and being so comfortable shooting the ball. And this year has been so weird. Like, it's like he uses himself as kind of just like a Swiss Army knife type player, as if he's not – somebody that can actually go get a bucket. Like it seems like if you leave it to him, he doesn't want to go out and actually try to score like off a jump shot or anything. And that's, been a concern of mine this year. But I mean, if he turns it up in the playoffs and changes that, then I like our chances against almost any team. But it's a matter of if he's going to do it, and we won't find out until the playoffs start for us Tuesday. So I don't know, man. I think with Jimmy, I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it's like just some mental hurdle with him, but I think if he does get that going for him, then we'll be all right. But he has to be. I think he has to be at least willing to shoot those shots. Like if you miss, you miss. But you can't.
Mm-hmm.
You can't limit your team and your teammates and hurt them by not shooting open looks. Like you were saying, he does with the corner threes. Like I've seen him, catch the ball in the corner and then he just waits like this, like he's just sitting there playing pocket. And it's like, no, you gotta shoot, you gotta drive, you gotta do something. Like if the defense isn't respecting you, make them respect you at least. So I don't know, man. I think he'll figure it out, but I think that's something that definitely needs to be emphasized. And hopefully he figures it out before teams start zeroing in on it, because if they do, then we could be in trouble, honestly. So we'll figure it out. But the Bam leap that I hinted at earlier, like Bam is starting to take mid-ranges now, man. He's getting comfortable with the game. Like we already knew he was a freak athlete. He could switch 1 through 5 on defense. Like he could do all this stuff. We knew that, but he's getting comfortable with the mid-range. And he hit a dribble pull-up 3 a couple weeks ago. I was like, don't make me start pushing the Bam Bosh agenda. Like I don't want to have to do that.
Who is this?
But
hashtag Bosh build.
Man, oh my goodness, he's been tremendous this year. I hope he ends up getting that Most Improved Player award. But with Bam, I feel like his leap has come on both ends, and offensively he's looking more comfortable. But do you feel like, and this is a question somebody asked me, so I figured I'll ask you, do you feel like Bam could be, I'm not going to say as good, because we're talking about probably a top 10 player, but do you think Bam could be like a centerpiece type of player, like kind of like how Nikola Jokic is for the Heat in the future?
I don't want to cap him. My first inclination is to say no, just because he's just now getting comfortable taking mid-range jumpers. It feels like he's had a lot of sequences this year to where the Heat have needed him to be more aggressive, and he doesn't naturally have that. Yeah, like it's very. I don't think it's a natural role for him to be that kind of a scorer. I think as far as the way that he's using the half court now, it's kind of that high post hub. He's kind of there with Jokic. I think him and Jokic are probably they're in the top 5 in terms of like elbow touches a game.
I believe it.
I mean, they both operate as those high post hubs. Jokic kind of does it picking out cutters. Bam does it more so with the dribble handoff. So Bam is kind of a walking mismatch in that effect, because you can run the offense through him higher out, and then he has the ball skills to beat slower bigs off the dribble.
Yeah, he can go to the basket.
He's him adding the mid-range jumper is big for him, especially with teams that like drop their bigs off of him. They're basically giving him that shot.
Yeah.
And once he gets that to a point to where teams have to press up on him more, that sets up those fake handoffs you were talking about earlier. Sets up more of those drives. So, I mean, that's going to help him with his free throw rate. He's always been a guy that could draw fouls. He's done it at a high rate this year because he's had more touches. So there's a path to him. There's a path for him to be like an 18 to 20 point per game scorer. I don't think he hits that upper echelon until the jumper really comes. And like I mentioned earlier, he has to abuse those mismatches on the block. He doesn't have to be Joel Embiid to where you just throw it to him on the low post and get out the way and clear for him. But like if teams are naturally switching, or if they naturally put a smaller guy so they can switch certain actions, or if it's just in the heat of play and they end up in the defense is scrambling, he gets a smaller guy on him, he has to put those guys underneath the basket and score, get to the free throw line. Like he can't have those instances like I'll say the Phoenix game to where Miami Heat, where the Heat late in that game run some action, they get a switch, Javon Carter is on Bam. Bam takes a couple dribbles, picks up his dribble about 8 feet away from the basket, pump fakes, and it takes a fadeaway over a 6'1" Javon Carter. Like you can't have that.
That reminds me so much of LeBron, because LeBron has a very bad habit of, when he gets a smaller guy on him, he wants to start playing like Kobe and taking fadeaways or shooting threes. I'm like, Bron, you one of the biggest, most athletic players to ever play the game, and you got somebody my size on you, and you want to start shooting jumpers over. I'm like, man, if you don't go to the basket, but yeah, I see that trend with Bam. I need him to fix that too. So,
I think just for Bam, like one of those things has to come together and it'll take him to a whole new level. Either he has to get more comfortable with his back to the basket on those switches, or the jumper really has to come along to where it isn't just I'm going to take 2 jumpers a game.
Right.
It's 4 or 5, and teams have to respect it because he's gotten good at it.
Yeah.
Type ordeal. And once he starts taking more corner threes, he needs to be doing that. I'm not sure if it's a him thing, if it's a Spo thing.
Yeah.
Bam should be taking a corner 3 a game. Like that. That just kind of has to be. That has to be an emphasis for him moving forward. But if either of those things come, then that just takes him to a whole nother level because the off the dribble game is there.
Mm-hmm.
The pick and roll ability is there. Obviously, you can use him in the high post as a passer. He has the dribbling ability to fake those handoffs. Great screener.
Basket. Yep.
Like gets to the back and gets to the free throw line. So like all the indicators are there. They're just small things he has to put together. And if one of those things clicks, they take him to a whole new level. If both of those things click, if the jumper comes and he's more aggressive against mismatches, then you are looking at like a Jokic type big to where you can legit run your offense through him, and it makes everyone a threat.
All right. I agree because with Bam, it's like he had a game in the bubble where he said he wasn't aggressive enough. And then the very next game, he came out extra aggressive, playing hyperactive on both ends. And I feel like that's something he needs to adapt to his game to where that's like a nightly thing. And he has to of course he has to do it like controlled, and you don't want to play out of control and aggressive, but I feel like if he adapts that to his game where he's aggressive every night and he's getting comfortable doing things on the court that whether he normally does them or not, if he gets to that level, then I could see him, expanding his game and heading up that upper echelon. So I think it's really not even just a confidence thing, but just a thing of, is this what my team needs me to do? Like I feel like he needs some kind of signal like to click in his mind that, okay, I have to go out and, take advantage of these mismatches, or I have to take these mid-ranges that these defenses give me, or the corner 3. So I feel like if something like that clicks in his mind, then he gets comfortable with it. We looking at a whole new guy. So I see where you're coming from on that point. And I think that if he does adapt to something like that, it might be scary for the league, man, because he's already coming up like crazy now. So
16, 10, and 5, like
and that's like this is a 3rd-year player. Like we not even experiencing, we could be looking at Bam completely different like 5 years from now. And he's only Bam just turned 23 years old. So it's like, I don't know, man. The future's looking bright for him. I hope he figures out the parts of his game that he needs to be aggressive with. And if he does, man,
good luck.
We're going to have a lot of fun as Heat fans. I'll say that much. But we talked about the Heat enough for today, I think. So I want to ask you about how these series are going to go. I know your boy is Chris Paul, and Chris Paul is my favorite point guard of all time also. But do you think that they're going to beat the Rockets in this first round series? That's the first round series I wanted to ask you about. Do you think they can do it? I think they can. What do you think?
I don't see it.
You don't?
I just don't see it, man. Like, Chris Paul is the best player on that team, first and foremost. He's had a phenomenal year.
Right.
To my own horn, I wrote about Chris Paul before the year, like, hey, he can have a real bounce back year in OKC. He's going to have the ball in his hands more. He's got young guys around him. He has a guy, Danilo Gallinari, takes pressure off of him. Like, there's room for OKC to be sneaky good this year, and they were. Right. But coming into this series against Houston, it just seems like a pretty bad matchup for him specifically. Because what Chris Paul is good at now, you give him the ball at the top of the key, he runs a pick and roll. If that defense drops, he has those elbow jumpers all day. He's going to knock down 97% of them.
Yeah.
Like, that's what he
Chris misses mid-range is a problem. Like, that's a bad day.
There you go.
That's bad luck.
Like, he's gonna flow into those elbow jumpers. Or if he forces the switch with that big man, then he's gonna cook that big man and hit rainbow jumpers over him.
Yeah.
And with Houston, they don't play a drop defense, so those pull-up jumpers aren't going to be there unless he's taking tough pull-up threes.
Right.
And he's not going to have a big man on the switch because the Rockets don't play big men.
Yeah, they probably don't know what a center is anymore, which is so funny because the greatest player in their franchise history is literally center.
Right.
Like, okay. It's ironic to me, but yeah.
It's great. So Chris Paul is just going to be facing a gauntlet of guards and wings.
Yeah.
And he's been a good ISO scorer basically his entire career.
Yeah.
And over the last few years, it's been because he has absolutely cooked big men in isolation, but not so much guards. I should have pulled this tweet up before the pod. I should have had that up ready for you. But I tweeted about it earlier today about how Chris Paul has done on switches over the last couple of years. And like there's a drastic difference between his points per possession on switches against guards versus big men.
Matter of fact, I did see that tweet. I saw that tweet. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's been much better against bigs in that front. So I'm just kind of worried about what OKC does in the half court.
Okay, yeah, that makes
sense.
Because
as much as people may clown like James Harden on defense, which is still a little bit weird, but jokes over facts, whatever.
Yeah.
Like the one thing James Harden is really good at is defending on the block. Like he's a cinder block. You can't move him.
Yeah, you
get a situation where he's So like if you stash James Harden on like Gallo is taller. He's a really skilled scorer, but like that's a matchup that Houston's going to be comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you're in a situation where you're forcing those switches and you're just dumping the ball down to Steven Adams 10, 12, 14 times a game, like sure he's going to score on those, but on the other end, he's guarding PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker's just going to fling corner threes. Yeah. Like the math just kind of adds up at that point.
Yeah.
And if Houston gets to the point to where they play Steven Adams off the court, then it gets kind of tough. So I just don't see the path to OKC beating Houston. And like I understand that Russ is out right now.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you're taking Russ out of the equation, that means you're taking out the one non-shooter in Houston's lineup and replacing him with a McLemore or an Eric Gordon or a Daniel House or an Austin Rivers, whoever they decide to slide in right there, which means it's James Harden playing like legit 5 out.
Yeah, I think they said Eric Gordon is going to take Russ's spot for game 1 at least. I think that's what the report was.
Yeah, there you go. Like Eric Gordon spots up from 28 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you're just giving James Harden, of all people, the widest driving lanes in the league. Like, you can't.
That's not necessary, though.
That's not what you want to do.
You just ruining your defense at that point.
Yeah, like I feel like because OKC has been a good team in general, and like the CP3 versus the old team storyline is so good, I feel like the actual nuts and bolts of the matchup is kind of being overlooked.
Yeah,
like, this just doesn't seem like a great matchup for CP3. And if CP3 is neutralized in the series, I don't really see Shea like taking over a series. Not yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dennis Schroeder's had a good year, but I don't see him taking over a series.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's a great matchup for Gallo, as good as he is. Like it just doesn't seem like there's a real avenue for like OKC to really hammer something. Like their best hope, I feel, is that Houston, who shoots a ton of threes but is bottom third of the league in like efficiency on threes, is that they go ice cold.
Yeah,
that's a possibility.
They've done it before.
Yeah, like they've definitely done that. But other than that, like I just feel like Houston has the best player in the series.
Mm-hmm.
And OKC's best player is in a situation to where he's not in an advantage really.
Yeah.
I just don't really see the path for OKC.
That's fair. I think it, for me, seeing that they could win was more so not even just being a fan of Chris Paul, but just giving him a fighting chance. So I think that's more so why I kind of feel like OKC could pull it off. But the points you just made, that's hard to argue with, man. So I could see that series probably going 6 games. I think it'd be a fun 6 games regardless. I think it'd be 6. A series we can talk about in probably a minute and a half because it's not going to go anywhere near how people think it's going to be. Lakers and Blazers. Like, how many games do you think the Lakers going to win that one? I think that's going to be a fun 5 or 4 maybe. People's talking about 6 or 7. I don't see that. They're not going to win.
I get it because the Lakers, like as much as Avery Bradley gets clowned, and I don't think he's good on the aggregate, like the one thing Avery Bradley does really well is guard point guards.
Yeah, he does.
So like I do think they're going to miss him, though Alex Caruso has done a good job on Dame in the past. Right. As good as you can do on Dame anyway.
That's the best you can do.
Yeah, but like it just kind of gets to a point to where, like, even though the Lakers point guard defense may be weak, they have so much length and size.
Yeah, they're a big
like
team.
My guess is that they're just going to blitz Dame on every pick and roll. And like Dame has met Anthony Davis in like a trapping pick and roll defense in the playoff series before, and we know how that went. Like Dame is obviously better now, but if it's going to be Caruso guarding Dame, like if you're saying Caruso and Anthony Davis are trapping Damian Lillard 35 feet from the basket, with LeBron James kind of operating as that health defender, being free safety there to take away those short rolls, like it. I just don't see it. Like I feel like the Lakers' length is really going to bother Portland. And then Portland just doesn't have – Gary Trent Jr. has been phenomenal in the bubble. Yeah. And he's a good defender in general. But, like, he's their best wing defender probably, and he's, 6'5", 6'6"? I think
so. And he's not –
if you're going to stash him on LeBron – you can't stash him on LeBron.
Nah.
And I don't see it. Like I would like to say 5 or 6 just out of respect to Dame, just because of how absurd he's been in the bubble.
Right.
But Portland's defense is so bad.
Oh my goodness, their defense is putrid. It's terrible. Like me and you can probably score on their defense, and we ain't in no kind of NBA shape.
I just like I'm sorry. Like I think we're going to see a more aggressive LeBron.
Yeah. I think so,
and
too.
with Portland not having a real body to throw on LeBron comfortably,
that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I just don't. Yeah, I'm going to say Lakers in 4 there. Like, I don't see it for Portland.
I respect it. See, like, with me, I kind of took it as, I said 5 just out of, like, and it's funny because D-Wade said this on TNT, and funny enough, I had DM'd him before he said it on TNT. I was like, hey, obviously they're not going to win the series, but I think that Dame maybe can pull off like an AI type thing and steal 1 game from the Lakers. And funny enough, he went on TV and said it. And then he hit me back. He was like, I just said that on TNT. Like, it's so crazy that you said it. And I was like, it's possible, but other than that, I don't see nothing else, man. I think it'd be fun. Like, it'd be cool to see a little shootout or whatever. But I don't think that series is going to go more than 5. But on to another series. This one is – I don't know. I won't be watching too much of it because I'm not really a fan of either team. But what's your prediction for the Denver-Utah series? Like, how many games do you think that one's going?
I'm going to say Denver in 6. I would go shorter, but Gary Harris is out for game 1. Will Barton's out for game 1.
I did see that.
So I'm not completely sure what they do with Donovan Mitchell, at least in game 1. Like, I would assume Torrey Craig gets that matchup, but he's better on wings than he is on smaller guards.
Right.
But other than that, Jokic just kind of bullied Rudy Gobert the last few times they played. So he's going to be the best player in that series.
Yeah.
I don't really know how Utah scores in the half court at this point. Mike Conley just left the bubble because he has a son coming. Early congrats to him. So he's out. Bojan Bogdanovic, he's already out for the year with the wrist injury.
Right.
So it's basically, in terms of shot creation, it's going to be Donovan Mitchell. It's going to be Joe Ingles. And it's going to be whatever version of Jordan Clarkson shows up.
Oh, God. You never know until the game starts.
Correct. Like, Clarkson has been very good.
And he's been better. Very bad.
Yeah. So he's one of those high variance guys. So I think it gets a little tricky there. Like, I don't think Utah has enough creation to really bully Denver. I don't know. Jokic is going to be great. Michael Porter Jr. is a walking mismatch.
Yeah.
I'm going to be rooting for Bobo minutes. We're not going to see any.
Goat.
Like,
Goat, man.
I need it. I need Bobo buckets. I need it. But in all
real
seriousness,
BBB.
I think correct. But no, I think Denver gets it done, man. I think Jokic is just going to set the tone there. I just don't think Utah's going to be able to score enough. And very quietly, their defense hasn't been that great anyway. So I think I lean Denver in 6 there, depending on how quickly their backcourt gets healthy.
I can see that. So as far as the last Western Conference first round series, we got the Clippers and the Mavericks. Now, for me personally, I believe in the little bracket I made, I put Clippers in, I want to say I put 5, I don't remember. But I think they're taking it 5 or 6 simply because, as great as Luka is, he doesn't bowl too well against really good to great perimeter defenders. And the Clippers have 2 of those. And they're not going to guard him the whole game, obviously. But it's like when you got 2 guys like that can switch on to Luka for a good chunk of the game, like that's going to make it harder for him. And Dallas has a good offense. They have good weapons around them. But, do you think that'll give them any kind of fighting chance to beat the Clippers, or do you think the Clippers are going to take that series rather easily?
I think the Clippers take the series rather easily. I will say the one thing that kind of keeps me from having more faith in Dallas is Kristaps Porzingis. Yeah. Though as good as he is, and he's been better since the restart, he just isn't physical enough on post-ups.
No, he's not.
I feel like the one, you can't even call it a weakness, just a non-strength that the Clippers have is that they aren't especially big in the front court. Like I think Zubac is the only 7-footer they have, and he's a tremendous interior defender. But I mean, he's not a high minute guy. The Clippers are going to want to close with Montrezl Harrell at the 5.
Yeah, and Montrezl is 6'7", 6'8".
Yeah, so I mean, that's the real mismatch that Dallas should have there. But Luka's more of a finesse guy, and I just don't think he can punish the Clippers enough to get to the line, force those guys into foul trouble, things of that nature, to kind of win on the margins like that.
Right.
And I agree with your Luka point. Like, as great as Luka is, and he'll still get his numbers just because he's that good. But, I mean, being able to toss Kawhi Leonard on him, and then you try to switch, and then you got Paul George on him.
You got Paul George coming up. It's like, what are you supposed to do?
It's just going to be a lot. Like, I would say one thing I would watch is if the Clippers and Mavs get into a close game, I'm interested to see who the Clippers close with, because as much as you talk about the Kawhi thing, that they can throw Kawhi on, they can throw Paul George on them. If Lou Williams is on the court to close games,
they can pick out that matchup.
It's going to be Luka calling Seth Curry or whoever to screen for him. It's going to be Lou Williams on their switch, and then the Clippers are going to scramble a little bit.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where you get into those quick duck ins for Kristaps against like a smaller front court if they're close with Montrezl at the 5 or something like that, to where you can kind of buy those buckets. I mean, as you mentioned, not only do the Mavs have a good offense, they had the highest offensive rating in NBA history this year.
Yeah.
So they can absolutely score. I don't trust the defense at all.
Nah, I don't.
So it's going to have to be a shootout for them. And I can't say I trust Kristaps enough to kind of force the issue. Beyond that, I don't know how they stop the Clippers on the other end. So I think it's going to be Clippers in 5.
I can see that. Yeah, I want to say on my bracket I put Clippers in 5 just because, they have such a great defensive set of wings, and they have a good defensive team in general. So, that's going to make it hard. Even though, like you said, the Mavericks had the highest offensive rating ever. It's just when you match up against a team with 2 of the best wing defenders in the game, it's like kind of makes it difficult, especially for a team that likes to shoot a good chunk of threes. So I don't know, man. I can see Clippers in 5. But time to shift to the East Coast real quick. One series isn't really worth talking about. I'm pretty sure we both know the Bucks are probably going to sweep the Magic. That's not really much to say. Maybe sweep, maybe 5 games, but I don't know, man. Like, I feel like that series is just – I feel like that's it. They just there just to play it real quick and just get it over with like it's a my career series. Like, I don't see too much happening with that one. And then we covered the Heat series. We both got the Heat taking it over the Pacers. So that would mean a Bucks and Heat matchup in the second round. But what about the other 2 series? Like, what do you think is going to happen with that Boston and Philly series? I feel like Boston's going to win, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as people think, even though Simmons is out. I think Embiid is going to have a solid series if he stays level-headed and not hurt, knowing him.
I kind of go back and forth with it a little bit because I feel like Philly's going to be a little bit better in the half court without Ben Simmons. Like
Yeah.
I want to be clear that I don't think the Sixers are a better team without Ben Simmons.
Right.
But I will say the biggest question I had about Philadelphia, like coming into the year and then coming into the postseason before the Simmons injury, was, okay, how are the Sixers going to score in the half court with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons on the court at the same time? Yep. And especially if it's those two and Al Horford on the floor at the same time, how are they going to score? Because teams are just going to double off of Ben Simmons. He's going to chill in the dunker spot. You're going to be banking on Joel Embiid beating double teams with passes and fitting tight passes in. And that's not a thing he's been able to do consistently in his career.
Right.
Once you move Ben Simmons out of the equation, then you're replacing him with a Matisse who, isn't treated as a shooter, but did shoot 36% or so from
I think
three.
So, something like that.
At least he's more of a threat to pull from the perimeter. Yeah, he's more of a threat to pull from the perimeter than Ben Simmons is.
Right.
If they slot Al Horford in, which is what it sounds like, I think Horford and Embiid are going to start together. Then the floor opens up a little bit more. So I anticipate that they're going to have an easier time scoring. And if you have Joel Embiid on the court, you're going to have an elite defense anyway. That's just the kind of interior presence that he is.
All right.
So I do think the series is going to be a little closer than people are anticipating.
I agree. I said the same.
But they are seriously missing some off the dribble creation. Like Josh Richardson can't be your best guy.
No.
Tobias Harris is a really good scorer, but he's not that type of guy.
Yeah.
He scores in a different way.
He's not somebody that's going to take over games for you by getting shots off the bounce and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's not that guy.
Yeah.
So I think just that kind of creation missing, and the question is still a little bit, the shooting is still a little bit questionable. I would still lean Boston. Like, they just have incredible depth with their wings.
Yeah.
Jason Tatum's been great. Jaylen Brown's been really good. Gordon Hayward's been really good. Kemba's there. I kind of expect Kemba to struggle because he's going to have so much length against them in this series. I don't really see it for him in this series. But, like, Boston just has so much talent.
Yeah. I think that's what I don't –
yeah, they're just incredibly talented, particularly on the wings. So I think that kind of wing talent is going to overwhelm Philly over a series. I'm going to go Boston in 6. I just don't think the other guys outside of Joel Embiid can make Boston pay enough.
Yeah, that'd be hard to do for at least for 4 games, like 4 winning games. So that would be hard for Philly, in my opinion, too. And then the last series, I mean, we got Toronto and the Nets. Nets have a bunch of, random guys. They are scrappy, but it's like, I mean, that's not really a team I think that Toronto should be worried about. I think they might slip up maybe one game and probably take the series in 5. But I think that's another one of those series, kind of like the Bucks and Magic series, where it'll be over rather quickly and we moving on to the second round. So I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. We could see upset, but I highly doubt it. We never know, but I highly doubt it. But
put some respect on Karis LeVert's name.
I like that dude, man. I like Karis.
He's nice. I hope he stays healthy, man.
Me too.
But I do agree with you. I think it's Toronto 5.
Yeah.
Like I do think there's probably going to be a game where Brooklyn gets a lot of threes to fall, or they win the offensive rebound battle. Kind of like we saw in that Portland game,
looking like Dennis.
They ended up losing that game, but I can't.
I don't know what was going on.
Fro just flying all over the place, man.
Oh, you saw the big old Fro just going like this.
I'm like, what is this?
That man was
when did Stretch get out here? What is
going on? Like, how is he doing this right now? That man, it was like he saw like the real life little target that the rebound and takeover got. He's like, oh, the ball going over there. Let me get what is going on? That man, he was on a mission. But that means second round. Quick predictions for the second round. If you saying the Houston Rockets and the Lakers gonna meet them in the second round, do you think the Houston Rockets can upset the Lakers? Or do you think the Lakers just gonna get to the Western Conference Finals in a tough series?
Ooh.
I know that. I know what that means. I know what it means.
Don't laugh at me, man. Houston intrigues me, man. They do.
That's fair.
They really do. Like, I feel like if Anthony Davis plays with force, it would be a very short series because they just don't have Houston just doesn't have the size to deal with him.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do about it.
And I mentioned him because I think in that once you get further in the playoffs, like they're just not going to trust JaVale McGee. No, I don't think they can really trust Dwight Howard either.
Yeah, JaVale might get maybe 5-10 minutes the first round, and then after that, it's just gonna keep going down. Same with Dwight. Dwight takes himself out of the game a lot of the times. The way he be fouling people, so it's
just fouls everybody. Yeah.
Like Dwight be breathing, he be like, "Nah, I gotta foul somebody." I'm like, what are you doing, man? Oh my goodness, something with him and fouling people.
Yeah, which is odd because he's been good this year otherwise. But
yeah, it's so strange. Like he's been having a really good season. It's just he can't not foul people. It's like he has an obligation in his own mind. He's like, I gotta foul somebody or else this ain't a good game for me. Like, what are you doing? Like,
calm down, bro. It's all right.
Like, it's okay. Like you don't have to do that. But that's the way. Yeah. So do you think with with the Rockets and Lakers series, I think their Lakers are going to handle business. I think they're going to the finals in general. But do you think you think it could go 7 if the Lakers end up winning anyway? Like, do you still see that series going 7 games?
Yeah, I think the series goes 7 either way.
I see it.
Look, I feel like the Rockets are so oddly constructed with the way they play so small.
Oh my goodness. They have a 6'5" man at center, and it works, but
it works.
Certain teams, it's like, are they gonna take advantage of the height mismatch or are they gonna struggle against it? And sometimes AD does struggle against PJ Tucker, so that's gonna be a big factor to me.
That's where it gets. And like just like when we talk about like Houston is susceptible to those kind of cold shooting streaks from 3. We just saw in the bubble where the Lakers could not hit a shot from outside. Like nobody could. So I mean,
23% at one point from 3.
Yeah. So I mean, if Anthony Davis averages 27 instead of like 40 in that front court because PJ Tucker does a good job, and Danny Green goes cold for a series, like it can get quite interesting.
It can get spooky.
Like, so I feel like that's a series that goes 7.
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh man, like I feel like you kind of have to go LeBron there, but
yeah, you kind of got to sway towards him, but it's not impossible either.
It's not. Like I like Houston in that matchup. Like they're just such polar opposites.
Yeah,
and like they have 2 guys on the perimeter in Russ and James that can take over a game on a whim, and they shoot enough threes to kind of win the math equation. So That's an upset waiting to happen, I feel.
Hey, man, like, my thing is, like I said, I think the Lakers are going to go to the finals, but if there was a team to, I guess you could say, upset them, I think Houston could be that team. And I'm not even like a Houston fan or like a James Harden fan like that, but it's just their team and the way he plays and the way Russ plays, they have a decently enough constructed team to, I guess you could say, kind of handle a team like the Lakers as far as, picking at their defensive weaknesses. Because, like, Avery Bradley's not there. So you lacking somebody that's – I'm not going to say he can shut anybody down like Harden or Westbrook, but you lacking a defender that can at least make it tough for them. And Caruso, like, as we said, he's been solid on defense, but it's like, that's a lot of creation. Like, that's a lot of points that you could be preventing that they could end up, putting up on the scoreboard. And that's going to add up along with the amount of threes that they shoot. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, if you get 30 points out of Russell Westbrook, you get 30, 35 out of James Harden, and then you factor in all the 3-point shooting that they do, and they have a hot game, and I don't know, man. I don't think they're gonna do it, but it's not impossible. Like, that's one of the teams that the Lakers should be afraid of, honestly.
I feel like the Lakers should be. I mean, they gotta worry about their own series first, but they're looking on the outside. They're probably rooting pretty hard for OKC in round 1.
I agree. they could pick on OKC a little bit more than they can Houston, and especially even on the defensive end, like they have less worry. Like you ain't got to worry about no 34 point per game score or a 27 point per game score with Westbrook. So I don't know, man. That one's that's gonna be a fun series. I'll say that much.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say that much.
It's gonna be fun on Twitter. Let me tell you.
Twitter is about to be. Oh my goodness!
Buddy, those are some fan bases for you. Listen,
I'll try to prepare for it, but at the same time, I want to laugh. So,
that's gonna be a bloodbath, bro.
Yeah, that's gonna be hilarious. So, Houston Lakers. You think there's an upset possibility? I think the Lakers are going. But either way, who do you got winning that Denver and Clippers matchup? Since we both think that they're going to match up, I think the Clippers going to get to the conference finals at the very least. So, how many games do you think that series is going to go? And who do you swing the favor to?
I would also go Clippers in 6. I think that's a series that Jokic could take over, but there's something about Jamal Murray I just don't trust.
Inconsistency.
He had a good playoff series last year. Struggled in the early goings of that Spurs series in the first round, then just kind of turned it on and then kept that going throughout the Portland series. So you would think he would springboard, kind of take that leap to really be that number 2 scorer this year. And like he was fine this year. Improved in some things, kind of regressed in some other things, like became a little better defender, became a slightly better passer. The 3-point shooting kind of went away a little bit, which is concerning. But, I mean, he has the track record of a shooter that's fucking to bounce back around. But, like, he just – I don't know. Like, he just – I don't know. There's just something about him that I don't really trust.
Yeah. And
he would have to have a huge series for Denver to pull that series off. And the fact that, Patrick Beverley's a good defender in his own right. And then if you get into late game situations, you could sick Paul George or Kawhi Leonard on Jamal Murray if you need to. And it's just
there's too many switchable players for the Clippers. Defensively, they have a lot of guys that can, I think Kawhi don't want to guard him, we can throw PG on him. If PG don't want to do it, we can throw Pat on him. That's gonna make a lot of a difference against these teams. So.
Yeah, I don't know if Denver has the horses to knock off the Clippers 4 times. So I'll probably go Clippers in 6 there.
Yeah, I'll say the same because, Denver, they have a really good offense and they have a solid defense at the same time. But it's like with the Clippers, there's 2 teams in the West and they're the top 2 seeds for a reason. It's the Lakers and the Clippers. It's like teams like those, you can't really get away with just having an average or a solid defense because they're going to play you both ends of the floor just as good as the other. So it's like you kind of have to really either get lucky, you got to bring your all on both ends, and it has to translate to winning basketball. And that's not really exactly easy to do. So, with that being said, I think the Clippers are going to probably take it in 6 as well. And I think it'd be a fairly entertaining series because, both teams have a tendency to kind of they can get into shootouts, I guess you can say. So it would be fun, but I think the Clippers are better built to, win a series like that. So that's how I see it. And then for the Eastern Conference, we got the second round. We already said we probably going to lose to the Bucks, maybe 6 games. But do you think, there's any hope of us upsetting them at all? I feel like it would depend on if Jimmy decided to actually start trying to shoot jumpers again. But I don't know, man. I give us a very low fighting chance, but I think we're losing 6.
Well, I mean, there's a path there for Miami. Again, they have shot the lights out this year. They've been the NBA's best 3-point shooting team. Milwaukee plays that deep drop defense that kind of leaves those pull-up jumpers open for a guy like Tyler Hero, for Kendrick Nunn, if he remembers how to play basketball, for Goran Dragic, sets up those dribble handoffs with Duncan Robinson. He loves to pull off the move. So there's a path there. And then on the other end of the court, Bam Adebayo has done as good of a job on Giannis as anyone in the league this year.
Right.
And Miami's done, in general, they've done a pretty solid job of building that wall against Giannis, kind of digging down on those drives and kind of making things tough for him.
All right.
So there's a path for Miami to pull an upset there. I don't think they will do that. I would probably also say Milwaukee in 6. I mean, they do have the best player in the series. Like, they have the best player in the world, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So, slowing down Giannis is one thing, but if that's opening up 3-point shots for Brook Lopez, that's opening up shots from all over the court for Chris Middleton, for George Hill. Dante DiVincenzo's been good this year. Eric Bledsoe, if he remembers how to play basketball, like, he's going to be able to penetrate the lane, kind of kick out the guys on the perimeter.
Right.
The Bucks just have so much talent.
They have so many weapons around.
They have so many, just a lot of weapons. And kind of like we alluded to earlier, if the Bucks decide they want to kind of go away from that drop defense, they want to play smaller, they want to go Giannis at the 5, then they can get into switching a lot more. And if you can switch that Bam, Duncan Robinson dribble handoff,
things get a little tough.
Yeah. So I think the Bucks have a lot of flexibility that they haven't gone to this year, but they haven't had to go to just because they've been so dominant all year long.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of a thing I expect them to continue. I would say they win that series in 6.
I can see it. So the other second round series, we got Celtics and Raptors. I think the Celtics will win, but I don't know, man. I think that'll probably be the most entertaining series out of maybe any of them, man. I feel like that series would be a whole lot of fun. But I'll take the Celtics' chances, and I'll give Toronto 7 games. What you saying?
Yeah. That would be a really good series, man.
Yeah, I need that to happen, man.
That's a lot of depth. That's a lot of defensive versatility.
Good coaching.
That's going to be for me being like a nerd, like that's going to be a fun series. Like, I just seeing
right
those
up your alley.
Yeah, that's right up my alley right there, man. All those sets they're going to come up with, all the in-game adjustments and stuff. Like, that would be fun to follow for me. Man, I would probably lean Boston by a hair.
Yeah. Just
because Toronto has been kind of mid in the half court all year.
Mm-hmm.
And
they're missing your twin brother Kawhi. That's why they don't have no go-to scorer as much.
Okay, see, we didn't even have to do that's just not a thing we had to do. We didn't have to do that. You could have gone the entire podcast without doing that. It would have been fine. The content would have been fine if you had not said that. You just did. That was not a thing that was needed. I'm not sure what you gained. There was not a thing gained at all. It's gonna, it's okay. It's all right. I understand. It's had to do it, and I see.
It was necessary.
But okay. That's just gonna put a lot of pressure on Pascal to score, especially the late game. He's been pretty good this year in like clutch situations. But I mean, that's a lot. Like Boston, as much as we talk about like Tatum and Jalen and stuff on the offensive end, like they're really good defenders as well.
And Marcus Smart.
Yeah, Marcus Smart is, depending on what you define Ben Simmons as, Marcus Smart is the best guard defender in basketball.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown is a good on-ball defender. Jason Tatum is one of the best off-ball defenders in the league. So, I mean, they can just wreak havoc there. Yeah. Like, I feel like that would have to be a big Marc Gasol series. Like, you'd have to work those Kyle Lowry, Marc Gasol pick pops just to kind of open up the floor for them a little bit. And if that's a series that Marc doesn't shoot well or doesn't shoot often, then I think he gets a little tougher in the half court.
Yeah.
So I would probably go Boston in a very hard-fought 7-game series there.
I agree.
I just have too many questions with Toronto in the half court.
That's fair. I feel the same about their half-court offense because, like, it's not terrible, but it's also not really – like, against a team like Boston that plays good defense and offense, it's kind of tough to – like, you can't always get away with having, like, a That's not something you can really just do. So that's kind of like how the Denver and Clipper series is like. Even though Denver has a really good offense, whether it's in transition or even in half court, their defense isn't gonna cut it as far as just being solid, and that's kind of how the Raptors' offense is in the half court. So unless they hitting a whole lot of threes or like you said, Marcus Gasol is having a good series, I think that will be, in favor of Boston. So now we're on to the conference finals. I want to know who you think gonna win these conference finals, man. This basically determines your finals pick. Like I think it's gonna be Lakers and Bucks in the finals, but I want to hear your thoughts on it too.
I would say it's gonna be Clippers Bucks in the finals. I just think the Clippers are a better team top to bottom. Mm-hmm. Again, I think one of the deciding factors is going to be just how much Doc is going to play Lou Williams down the stretch.
Right.
I don't think that is a series for Lou Williams because LeBron is just going to pick on him and pick him apart in games. We've seen that in the regular season series. Like, that's just all it's going to be. Like, hey, you come here, let's get Lou Williams into play. Yeah. Either you're going to let me bully Lou Williams or you're going to send extra help and that's going to open up something for somebody else.
All right.
So I think that's the series where you have to close with like Patrick Beverley and Landry Shamet. Mm-hmm. And then kind of fill it out with Kawhi, PG, and whoever you want to throw out there. Montrez at the 5, Zubac at the 5, whatever they want to do there. Marcus Morris if they want to go super small.
All right.
But I just think kind of similar to what I said about the Bucks. Like they have a level. I mean, they just have so many options they can go to. They got to mix and match with anyone. If they want to go bigger to kind of match up with that Twin Towers look the Lakers goes to, they can do that. If they want to downsize and kind of try to run a little bit, create those quick opportunities in transition, they can do that too.
Yep.
Again, Kawhi has a tremendous playoff track record, as does LeBron. But, I mean, Kawhi's a guy that you can stash on LeBron and make life tough on him. And you have Paul George. And I think it's going to be a 6 or 7 game series, but I do think the Clippers are the better team. I would pick them in a series.
That's fair. I think it comes down to when the Western Conference Finals get brought up. If it's those two teams meeting up, which as I said I believe there will be, I feel like it kind of comes down to like one of those a series like that has to be, I guess you could say that has to be an Anthony Davis series. Like kind of like how when LeBron and D Wade were teammates, and that first year where they were together, like they kind of like alternated on who was more so the guy or not. And D Wade had his way against a team like Boston, like he led the team in scoring against Boston, and LeBron was there supplementing an extra 25 to 28 points a game. So I feel like one of those series that's going to depend a lot on how AD plays against the Clippers. And if he's more so the guy against the Clippers and he, takes over that series, I think that's what will push the Lakers over the edge.
Yeah.
But I could see the Clippers, taking it from them if they don't figure out that AD is the factor in, more so winning that series. Like LeBron is going to be LeBron. He can turn it up at pretty much any given moment, especially in a playoff atmosphere. But you have to dominate I guess you could say, I don't want to pin AD down as just a second option because he's better than that, but he kind of more or less is. But you have to attack the fact that you're going to need him to be that guy in a series like that. Yeah. It's kind of also like with Shaq and Kobe. Like Shaq and Kobe picked apart defenses at times where, he took over games or he was taking over series, and then Shaq was dominating later on, maybe in the finals or something. So I think it has to be something like that in order for the Lakers to win. But if the Clippers win, I wouldn't be surprised, but the Lakers are my pick. And then as far as the Eastern Conference goes, if it's Bucks and Celtics, I'm going to say the Bucks. I'm going to say 6 games. I don't think it's going to be, like last year. Like last year was an ugly little series after game 1. Like that was egregious basketball, man. Like that's, oh my goodness. But I think that would be more of a fighting chance for the Celtics. But like you said, the Bucks have so much versatility on both ends. Like they have guys where they can go big or they can go small and have Giannis running the center. It's like you got to figure out how Boston would contain something like that. But what do you like? I know you think the Bucks are going to the finals as well, but do you think that series goes 6 games, or do you think it goes 7 games? The Bucks get them out of here in 5. Like, how do you think that goes?
I lean Bucks in 6. I think again, the Celtics have so much wing talent. Like, I feel like they are equipped to kind of score against Milwaukee's defense. But again, Giannis is just incredible.
Yeah,
and then there's also a level of size that the Celtics lack in the front court that you
Daniel
need
Tice
against a
is too
Giannis. Yeah, like Daniel Tice is 6'8", 6'9". Robert Williams is more athletic, but he's on the same size. Enes Kanter is bigger, but I mean, if Enes Kanter is playing a lot of minutes for you on defense,
that's a problem.
It might get that's not what you want.
Yeah.
So I don't see a real way to keep Giannis out of the paint without like a bunch of charges being drawn, which I mean, Marcus Smart is there.
Yeah.
And you know, those regular season matchups have gotten chippy just because of how physical they get with Giannis. Like, there's some bad blood there. So it's the Giannis factor for me. Also, Khris Middleton turns into some hybrid of Michael Jordan and Larry Bird.
Oh my goodness!
So
every single time, bro. Like, it doesn't fail.
Yeah, like like you said, the Bucks just have so much lineup versatility they can go to when they need to. So I don't see a way. I don't think they can slow down Giannis enough ultimately for them doing that series.
So with their versatility meeting the Clippers' versatility, I know this is your pick for the finals, Clippers versus Bucks. With the two versatile teams meeting up, who do you lean for a championship based on your matchup? I feel like if the Lakers meet the Bucks in the finals, they will win 7 games. But I want to know your analysis on the flip side of it, where it's the Clippers and the Bucks. Like, who takes that series and how many games, and why? Like, why do you think that team takes that series?
I kind of go back and forth with it, right? I'm still trying to. I actually tweeted earlier that I'm going to have my playoff predictions out tomorrow. I've kind of gone through all of them, and this is the one I've been stuck on because on one hand, I could see the front court size being an issue, kind of similar to the Boston series.
Yeah.
To where, like, Boston has a bunch of really good wing defenders and some smaller guys that can maybe draw some charges and bother Giannis a little bit. But then you look in the front court, and while they may be good, they're kind of undersized.
Yeah. It's a fairly short team.
So I look at the Clippers, and it's like, you know, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard is an upgraded version of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But on the flip side, you know, Zubac is a good rim protector, but I'm not sure how comfortable Dale would be with having him out there with Brook Lopez kind of stretching the floor. So I would anticipate that's going to be a series that we see a little bit more of Montrezl Harrell. Right. And while he's improved defensively this year, he's still, 6'8"?
Yeah.
He's not a guy, like, it's going to be a little tougher for the Clippers to kind of build that wall that you need against Giannis. So I feel like that's a series that Giannis could have some success. Because if you look back to how Giannis struggled in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and first it struggled by his standards, he was still pretty good.
Yeah.
But also it was having Kawhi on him, but also you have rangy, long 6'9" Pascal Siakam digging down. And then behind him you have this big 7-footer in Marcus Gasol that's there to protect the rim too. The Clippers will have that same second line, Kawhi Leonard on Giannis, Paul George can dig down, Patrick Beverley can hinder him a little bit on those drives. But that back line is still small.
That's where it gets questionable, yeah.
That's where it gets questionable. So I could see where that might be a series to where the Bucks could generate a lot of threes in. Just because the Clippers are going to collapse that paint.
Right.
And I think the Bucks do have the shooters to make that a tough series for the Clippers. So I want to say the Bucks, but the Clippers are still a little bit deeper.
Yeah, they have a really deep team, man.
They do, and it's just, as much as I love Khris Middleton, Paul George is better than Khris Middleton.
Yeah.
Even if you agree Giannis is better than Kawhi, and even that's probably up in the air for some folks based on what Kawhi did last year.
Right.
So all I have right now is that series goes 7. I don't know. Yeah, I have to do some more thinking on this. Yeah, like I need to look back on some film on how Giannis was guarded by Kawhi, things like that. Kind of look at some film, look at some numbers. I'll have a more definitive answer tomorrow. all I know is that's a 7-game series. Like, I think those are the 2 best teams in the league.
That's fair. I feel the same with that matchup, and same with the, even if it's a Lakers matchup like I predicted. And I would say it wouldn't be an easy, win in 7 games for the Lakers versus the Bucks, but it's like I could see how they could pull something like that off if that series were to happen and they win 7 games. So I feel either way, like either the LA teams are going to the finals, in my opinion, but I just picked the Lakers because I feel like they have a slightly better shot than the Clippers to get there and get the job done. But I don't know, man. Like Lakers will have to figure out some kind of, like they lack the versatility of a team like the Clippers and the Bucks do as far as their defensive lineups. And they're a great defensive team, but that's primarily because of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Like, it's not like they have, a whole bunch of wispy and lengthy defenders running around like a Toronto Raptors or a Milwaukee Bucks type team or Clippers type team even. So that would come down to, I think, sheer dominance as far as LeBron, playing out of his mind and Anthony Davis doing the same. And it's not impossible, but I think that would be a really, really entertaining series, man. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes, but I'm glad I was able to get you on to this podcast, man, get your predictions down, talk about the Heat a little bit. Hopefully Bam takes the leap that he needs, and hopefully Jimmy Butler gets comfortable shooting jump shots again. We need something, man. I just want to at least get a fighting chance in the second round. At least. That'll be good enough for you. But appreciate you coming on, man. We got to do this again sometime. We will.
Absolutely, man. Long time coming.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, we covered it, and this has been the SoCal Intellect Podcast. Your host, Nick Swish, signing out. My man, Nekias Duncan, came through. Make sure y'all follow this man on Twitter at Nekias NBA. That is Nekias NBA. Make sure you follow that man. Read his articles. He's a hell of a writer, man. And watch his tweets during the games. He knows what he's talking about. He knows the game of basketball. I will say that much. He may be a dinner, but he knows
I'm a best
basketball.
man. Okay. Okay. Here, see, I was about to plug it. I was about to plug your merchandise and everything, man.
You can still do it. You can still.
No, I am unplugging it.
Ladies and gentlemen, he got an SM shirt. See, I got a Kobe and Nipsey. He got the Swisho. I just blew this promo, didn't I?
Yes, you did. Yes, see, this is the Swisho mole shirt.
Oh, wow.
Okay. It's tough. See, I got that. Got it from T Public.
Oh,
see.
Wow. So you got the fake Swisho mode. Okay.
Correct.
That man got the swap meet Swisho mode. That's what the SF stands for.
Correct.
All right, man. Once again, this is SoCal Intellect Podcast. We are signing out.